It was an ordinary day at NYU Stern, one that seemed to carry the typical hum of student life. The business school was buzzing with students juggling classes, meetings, and the usual chaos that came with the grind of academic pressure. But today, something was about to happen that would shift the mood of the entire campus, and it all started with one comment. Lena, a vocal and opinionated liberal student at NYU Stern, had always been someone who wasn't afraid to voice her thoughts. Her social media presence was known for her fiery takes on the current political climate, especially concerning figures she believed represented everything wrong with the world. From her opinions on climate change to her stance on gender equality, Lena had made a name for herself as a passionate advocate for progressive causes. But today, her focus was different. It wasn't on politics or the social issues she normally discussed. No, today, Lena was watching Barron Trump, the youngest son of the sitting president of the United States, as he walked through the campus courtyard. He was a student at the prestigious university, enrolled in a program that some said was a legacy admission, but the younger Trump kept a relatively low profile. His quiet demeanor and penchant for staying out of the public eye meant that he was rarely in the spotlight, especially compared to his older siblings. Barron had always been a topic of fascination for the public, given his high-profile family and his status as the son of one of the most polarizing political figures in the world. But it wasn't Barron's background or his last name that caught Lena's attention that day. No, it was his hair. Barron had recently adopted a new, shaggy hairstyle. His golden locks, once neatly combed and styled, now hung loosely in waves, a far cry from the sleek look he'd worn in his younger years. The change was striking and, to some, refreshing. But to Lena, it was just another example of a Trump family member trying to garner attention. With her phone in hand, Lena posted a story on Instagram. The post featured a picture of Barron walking through the courtyard with his head down, wearing a simple hoodie, his new hairstyle swaying gently in the breeze. Lena's caption was snarky, a sharp critique of Barron's choice. Barron Trump's latest hairstyle, a sad attempt to be relatable. I guess even he's trying to look like he fits in with the common folk now. What's next? Wearing a hoodie and pretending to care about our issues. Hashtag Shaggy Trump, hashtag not buying it. The post quickly gained traction. Lena's followers, many of whom shared her progressive views, responded in agreement. Some laughed at the idea of Barron, a member of one of the richest families in America, trying to adopt a look that was seen as down-to-earth. Others made similar jokes, poking fun at his new hairstyle and the idea that it was an attempt to seem less privileged. But little did Lena know her post was about to create a storm far beyond the confines of NYU Stern. The comment that she had made, innocuous to her, was about to send shockwaves through social media. The backlash would be swift and, as it turned out, unexpected. It didn't take long for Lena's post to spread. Her followers, who were primarily fellow students at NYU and people who agreed with her progressive stance, had shared it far and wide. Within hours, the post had caught the attention of a much larger audience than Lena had ever anticipated, including conservative media outlets and Trump supporters who were quick to defend Barron. At first, it seemed like the typical social media interaction. Some people laughed at Lena's witty commentary, others agreed with her, and a few took offense, but things began to escalate when an unexpected figure entered the conversation. Barron Trump himself. Lena had posted the picture, expecting some small banter in return. After all, she was used to engaging in debates with people online, often taking the side of the underdog as she saw it. But what happened next was something no one could have predicted. It was late in the evening when Lena received a notification on her phone, a direct message. At first, she thought it was just another follower, perhaps offering their support or disagreement with her post. But as she opened the message, her heart skipped a beat. The message read, "You don't know me, Lena, but I think you might want to know something." Lena stared at the screen for a moment, unsure of what to make of it. She recognized the name Barron Trump. Her mind raced. Was this real? Or was someone playing a prank on her? "You've made fun of my appearance and tried to judge me based on my choices, but I don't think you realize the full picture. We're not all defined by the people we're related to. If you want to know who I really am, why don't you try looking past the surface?" Lena could hardly believe it. Barron Trump, the son of the President of the United States, was sending her a message. She quickly checked the account. Sure enough, it was verified with a blue checkmark, confirming it was his official profile. But what could this message mean? Was Barron genuinely reaching out to her? She hesitated for a moment before replying. unsure of how to respond to a message like this. Barron, I didn't mean to offend you. It was just a comment about your hairstyle. Nothing personal. Almost immediately, she received another response, which hit her with a sense of realization. The hairstyle is just hair, Lena. It's about who I am as a person that matters. Maybe you should focus on that instead of judging people based on how they look. The conversation continued for a few more exchanges, but Lena soon found herself at a crossroads. What started as a joke about Barron's appearance had suddenly turned into something much deeper. She had expected some backlash from his supporters, but she never imagined she would find herself in an actual conversation with Barron Trump, challenging her own perspectives on judging people based on appearances. As the night wore on, Lena found herself torn between continuing the conversation and simply ignoring it. But before she could make a decision, her phone buzzed again. This time it was an article shared by one of her friends with the headline, "Liberal NYU student makes fun of Barron Trump's hairstyle, the backlash is furious." The article detailed Lena's Instagram post, followed by Barron's response. It was clear that what had started as a harmless comment about a teenager's hairstyle had now spiraled into a national conversation. The media storm erupted as news outlets across the political spectrum picked up the story. Conservative blogs accused Lena of being a hypocrite, pointing out how she, an advocate for inclusivity and social justice, had criticized Barron for something as superficial as his hairstyle. Many of Barron's supporters began flooding her social media accounts with harsh comments, some even calling her a snowflake for daring to criticize the president's son. On the other hand, Lena's followers, mostly liberals, came to her defense, arguing that the backlash was just an attempt to silence critics of the Trump family. They applauded her for standing up for her beliefs and calling out Barron's superficial attempt to relate to regular people. But the real twist came when a few hours later, Barron's message to Lena went viral. The tone of his response was calm, thoughtful, and personal. It was clear that Barron wasn't just defending his hairstyle, he was challenging Lena and by extension, the public, to reconsider how they judged others based on appearances, especially someone like him. This led to a larger discussion about privilege, expectations, and the pressure placed on individuals simply because of their family names. Lena realized she had become the center of a storm she wasn't prepared for. The storm surrounding Lena's post and Barron's response continued to build. What was supposed to be a small, seemingly inconsequential comment had now exploded into a full-fledged media circus. News outlets, social media platforms, and talk shows were buzzing with discussions about the exchange. Everyone had an opinion, and as expected, the issue was divisive. On one side, conservative commentators had seized the opportunity to criticize Lena's liberal stance, accusing her of hypocrisy and elitism. They argued that she, an outspoken liberal, had been quick to judge Barron Trump for something as trivial as his hairstyle, despite her frequent advocacy for tolerance and acceptance. Barron, the young man at the center of the storm, was often portrayed as a victim of a double standard. "Isn't it interesting," one conservative pundit remarked on a popular news show, "how the left claims to champion diversity, yet the moment someone like Barron Trump tries to look a little different, they pounce on him as if he's an alien. The hypocrisy is unbelievable." Lena's social media notifications were flooding in as more and more people joined the debate. The support for her, though strong among her followers, seemed to pale in comparison to the growing number of individuals who sided with Barron. Conservative groups and Trump supporters had mobilized quickly, sharing memes, posts, and commentary denouncing Lena's actions. The hashtag Leave Barron Alone began trending across platforms, calling for people to stop attacking the young Trump. On the other hand, Lena's allies, many of whom were outspoken liberals, argued that Barron's message, while polite and introspective, was just a carefully crafted PR response. They believed Barron was using his family's influence to avoid criticism and deflect attention from his privileged status. To them, it wasn't about his hairstyle at all, it was about the larger conversation surrounding privilege and the public's expectations of individuals who were part of a political dynasty. Lena herself was struggling to navigate the chaos. She had started the conversation with a simple post about Barron's hair, but now she found herself at the center of a polarized debate. Her friends were reaching out to offer support, but others were beginning to question her decisions. She felt the weight of the situation bearing down on her. Then something unexpected happened. Barron Trump, the quiet, reserved young man who had previously kept a low profile, agreed to sit down for an interview with a popular talk show host to discuss the entire ordeal. The interview was scheduled for the following week, and the media couldn't stop talking about it. Lena was shocked. She had expected Barron to quietly retreat back into the background, maybe release a brief statement and move on. But this? An interview? It was an unprecedented move for Barron, and it signaled that he wasn't backing down. The night before the interview aired, Lena received another message from Barron. This time, it was a brief but thought-provoking note. I know this has spiraled into something bigger than either of us anticipated. I hope that when you watch the interview tomorrow, you'll understand where I'm coming from. I'm not trying to be a symbol or a political pawn. I'm just a person like anyone else trying to navigate this world. Maybe we can have a real conversation after it's all over. Lena didn't know what to expect from the interview, but she knew one thing: this was no longer just about hair. It was about a larger conversation on identity, expectations, and the role social media played in shaping public opinion. The day of the interview arrived, and the media had been building up to it all week. Barron Trump, the youngest son of President Donald Trump, was about to speak for the first time since the incident at NYU Stern. His decision to publicly address the controversy surrounding Lena's post was a bold one. Most people expected the interview to be a simple deflection, but Barron surprised everyone with a thoughtful, introspective approach. The interview was scheduled on a popular late-night talk show known for its celebrity guests and lighthearted discussions. The host, a charismatic and witty individual, was known for getting celebrities to open up. But this time, the guest was no ordinary celebrity. This was Barron Trump, a young man who had rarely spoken publicly. As Barron entered the studio, there was a noticeable air of anticipation. The audience seemed unsure of what to expect. Barron, dressed casually in a plain black t-shirt and jeans, walked confidently toward the host's desk. He gave a small smile and shook the host's hand before taking his seat. The stage was set for a conversation that would have far-reaching consequences. The host, eager to dive into the topic that everyone was talking about, wasted no time. Barron, thanks for being here tonight, the host began, his tone casual but curious. We all saw what happened with the whole social media exchange. Your response to Lena's Instagram post has really caught the attention of a lot of people. How do you feel about it? Barron paused for a moment, taking a breath before responding. He didn't seem rattled or defensive, rather, he seemed calm, almost as if he had been preparing for this conversation for a long time. Honestly, Barron began, I wasn't expecting it to blow up like this. It started as something small, something personal. But I think it's important to address it because it became something bigger. It became a conversation about who I am, how I'm perceived, and how easy it is for people to judge others based on the smallest details. He shifted slightly in his seat, his voice steady but carrying a weight of reflection. The truth is, I don't want to be judged based on my last name or my appearance. I'm just a person. And I think it's important that we all remember that. I mean, isn't that what we all want, just to be seen for who we really are, not just for the surface-level things? The host nodded, clearly impressed by Barron's maturity. That's a really insightful perspective. But what about the hairstyle? It seems like it was a pretty big part of the initial discussion. Do you think it was a mistake to change your look? Barron gave a slight shrug. I don't think it's about the hairstyle itself. I think it's about how people can sometimes turn something as simple as hair into a reflection of who you are or what you stand for. The truth is, I didn't change my hairstyle for anyone else. I did it because I wanted to. People are always going to judge you no matter what you do. But that doesn't mean you have to cater to their expectations. The host smiled. I think that's something a lot of people can relate to. But what about the criticism? We know you've received some harsh comments, particularly from Lena and others on social media. How do you deal with that kind of negativity? Barron took a moment before answering, his voice quieter now. It's tough. I won't lie about that. But I've learned that you can't let other people define you. Everyone has their own battles, their own struggles. And we all deal with them in different ways. I try to stay true to myself, no matter what anyone else says. It's not easy, but I think it's the only way forward. The conversation shifted, and Barron spoke more about his experiences growing up in the public eye, the challenges of being the child of a polarizing president, and how he navigated life as someone who had to constantly deal with public scrutiny. He talked about how, despite his family's wealth and power, he still had to deal with the same human struggles that everyone else did. As the interview came to a close, the host asked one final question. Barron, if you could tell the world one thing about who you really are, what would it be? Barron's answer was simple, but it resonated deeply with everyone watching. I'm just a person. And I want to be seen for who I am, not who people expect me to be. The interview aired that night, and it quickly went viral. Social media platforms exploded with reactions. Some people were moved by Barron's maturity and honesty, praising him for handling the situation with grace and dignity. Others, however, remained skeptical, arguing that Barron's message was just another attempt to play the victim and avoid accountability. For Lena, the interview forced her to reassess her original post and the message she had tried to convey. She watched the entire conversation, not just as someone who had started the controversy, but as a person who was now part of a larger societal conversation about judgment, privilege, and identity. The aftermath of Barron Trump's interview was nothing short of a cultural moment. As the media and public continued to debate, the conversation surrounding Lena's Instagram post and Barron's response had evolved into something more profound. What began as a simple comment about a hairstyle had now sparked a nationwide conversation about identity, judgment, and the pressures of being under the public microscope. Lena found herself reflecting on the entire experience. She had expected some criticism, of course, but she hadn't anticipated the depth of the backlash or the personal connection that would emerge between her and Barron. The fact that he had reached out to her and then publicly addressed the issue with such thoughtfulness was something she could never have predicted. Over the next few days, Lena took time to process the events that had unfolded. She received an overwhelming amount of support from some of her friends and followers, but there was also a large wave of criticism. Many argued that she had been too quick to judge Barron and that her post had been a cheap shot. Others, however, saw her original comment as a genuine expression of frustration with the privileged elite. But one thing was clear, the situation had made Lena a lightning rod for larger debates about fairness, privilege, and the value of appearances. As Lena scrolled through the comments on her social media posts, she couldn't help but notice how polarizing the situation had become. She had been labeled everything from a snowflake to a hypocrite, with some claiming she had been insensitive to Barron's position as a public figure and others accusing her of not doing enough to challenge the power structures she claimed to oppose. It was exhausting. Yet, amidst the noise, one comment stood out. It was from Barron himself. The message read, "Lena, I think we both learned something from this. I know this situation wasn't easy for you, and I understand why it upset so many people. But I appreciate you taking the time to listen, and I hope we can both move forward with a greater understanding of each other. I'm not perfect, and I'm sure neither are you, but maybe this can be a turning point for both of us." The message was brief, but it left a lasting impact on Lena. It reminded her of the larger lesson that the public had failed to grasp. Despite their differences, we were all just human beings. For all the political and ideological divides, for all the media spectacles, there was still the need for empathy and understanding. The media continued to churn out stories about Barron's maturity and Lena's role in the controversy. Some applauded her for opening the door to an important conversation, while others criticized her for not fully understanding the magnitude of the situation. Despite the ongoing debate, Lena couldn't help but feel a sense of closure. She had learned something about herself, too. She had learned that making snap judgments based on surface-level details could sometimes miss the bigger picture. As for Barron, his public persona had changed in a way that no one had expected. He had gone from being the quiet son of the president to someone who, in his own words, was just trying to navigate the world. He wasn't a symbol for a political party or a tool in the fight between conservatives and liberals. He was, as he had said, just a person. In the weeks that followed, Lena's followers noticed a shift in her approach. Her posts became more introspective, and she began engaging with a broader range of perspectives. She still held firm to her beliefs, but now she understood the importance of listening before jumping to conclusions. The experience had changed her, not just in terms of how she viewed Barron Trump, but in how she viewed her own role in shaping the world around her. Barron, too, continued with his life, but the lesson from that conversation lingered. He knew that people would always have opinions about him, just as they did with his family. But he also realized that he didn't have to be defined by those opinions. The experience had taught him that authenticity, being true to oneself, was the only way forward. And as for the rest of the world, the story of Barron Trump and Lena, two young people with differing viewpoints, had sparked a conversation that extended beyond just hairstyles or political affiliations. It was a conversation about how we judge others, about the expectations we place on those in the spotlight, and about the complexities of identity in a world full of superficial judgments. The media eventually moved on to other stories, as it always did, but the impact of this one exchange lingered. Barron and Lena, each in their own way, had emerged from the storm as more nuanced individuals. They weren't perfect, but they had shown the world that, sometimes, The best way to move forward was not by doubling down on one's opinions, but by listening, understanding, and learning from the experiences of others. And in the end, that was the true lesson for everyone involved.